today we're joined by a social worker, a mental health author, and the creator of a stress management program, Reaching Equilibrium. It's Hayley Melissa. Hi, Hayley. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Before we get into your stress management program, can you just let everyone know where you grew up and what childhood was like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in New York City, where I actually don't live anymore. And that definitely gave a very big impact to the kind of work that I would do later on. It's a great foundation, such a diverse community, diverse place to live, all different kinds of sites, experiences, people, different cultures, backgrounds. And it really gave me a lot of the tools that I would need later on to really be very self-aware and to try to want to reach out to diverse groups of people.
So you chose the field of social work to go into.
Yeah.
Why did you choose that? What drew you to
Yeah.
social work?
So originally I was interested in studying psychology. I knew that from a very early on point, but I also say jokingly that once I was a little kid, I said that I wanted to be Mr. Rogers when I grew up. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. But I knew that I was very interested in mental health and mental health awareness. And so, from an early age, I associated, oh, the one route to there would be through psychology. And later on, I learned more about social work, and I really gravitated towards that because I felt that in addition to the clinical therapeutic piece that psychology offers, social work in addition has this advocacy piece where we also talk about connecting people to resources based off of where they're at and what they're looking for. And I think that's what made the social work route as opposed to the psychology route the right fit for me.
And was there lots of training involved in becoming a social worker?
Yeah, there definitely was. I took a little bit of a unique route. Some people take, some people don't, which is that I also did my undergrad in social work. Not everybody does that. A lot of times people will study psychology or sociology or some other type of related field. So my process was a little bit accelerated as a result because I did my undergrad in social work. I only had to complete my master's in 1 year as opposed to two. So it was a little bit faster for me.
Okay. Over here in England, social workers tend to get involved with families when they need extra support or they're getting themselves into trouble. What's the role of a social worker in the States?
Oh my goodness. If we could literally be here for hours if we were to go into full depth, but that's the beauty of social work. We basically divide into different umbrellas. So one umbrella is the macro level. Those are the people who advocate for policy and change and activism. They're the people who want to set about social equitable laws, and you might even see them go as far as working in the UN. Then there's more clinical work, which is very similar. Think like a clinical psychologist. The route of training and education is a little different, but the roles and what they're allowed to do extremely similar. You might see social workers in school settings alongside guidance counselors. You might see them working in family support. They might work with couples. There's really very
Skype.
far and wide parameters.
Okay, and you wrote a couple of books on mental health. What made you decide to start writing?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of power in writing because it's a great way to get information and education out to the general public. And it's also a wonderful tool because sometimes when we talk one on one, when we have a conversation, it's at a very defined pace. It's as long as you have time to sit and talk with me, or if you schedule an appointment, maybe it's 30 minutes, 60 minutes, but there's barriers to it. When you're actually picking up a book and reading, you get to go at a pace that works well for you. People like to integrate and process at different paces than each other. So it's just a great medium to learn more and do it at a pace that works well for you.
And when do you write? What's the process? Do you write a couple of paragraphs and then leave it for a while and go back, or do you lock yourself away and focus? How do you tend to write your books?
Yeah, so I love this question because I feel like it relates a lot to the advice that I give other people about productivity, right? So you need to find a system that works well for you, which will look different. So some people, like I have tried and sometimes utilize something like a Pomodoro method where I'll work for 25 minutes, take a break for 5, or I'll work 50 minutes, take a break for 10. That works well. But then there's those days when if you have like a really good motivational burst and you have that energy, sometimes I just like to capitalize on it and then just kind of trudge away for the day.
You've created a stress management program online. What is stress management, first of all, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so stress management, not to sound like I'm giving too obvious of a definition,
Yeah,
but it really is tackling when we feel overwhelmed by stress. And I really like to emphasize the keyword management as opposed to like removal or anything extreme like that, is because there are benefits to having some low levels of stress. And we could go into that for a very long time, but basically, to summarize, having a little bit of stress keeps us actually safe. It keeps us aware. It's, saying if somebody's doing something dangerous, like we don't touch the fire kind of thing, right? So there is some benefits to some low level stress and how you navigate those kinds of situations. But what ends up happening is we can get into these places where the stress levels get really, really high, and we start to face physical and emotional symptoms as a result of having too much stress. So we need to be careful because we're going to start to get overwhelmed. We're going to start to get burnt out, and we can face both mental health and physical repercussions of it. So I use the example of if you've ever had a big project at work, or for people who remember their school days when they have the big test and it's like you're going, and then as soon as that project or exam is over, you feel sick or like you have a cold the next day. That's the burnout kicking in, right? So it's very important that we manage our stress levels so that way we don't work ourselves so hard that now we're having negative symptoms as a result.
yeah, I do a lot of work with young people with special educational needs, and trying to get them to work with their stress management is really
Yeah.
difficult because the barrier they have with their autism and that as well. What advice would you give to people who have barriers with like their mental health and their autism and stuff like that for being able to manage stress?
Yeah, so it's very important that when you're diagnosed with any condition, whether it's a physical health condition or mental health condition, you do know how stress can play a part of that. So, one of the best ways is to first start by talking with your doctor to see what that would look like for you,
Yeah.
because stress will present differently in a person with autism versus a person with Crohn's versus a person with a personality disorder. So it's very good to talk with somebody and see how stress can impact the symptoms of your diagnosis. And then what I say is lean into your strengths. Having a diagnosis of any kind is by no means a weakness, or means you have to accommodate so far where you feel like you're compensating. It's quite the opposite. We need to look and see what are the strengths that come of that. Okay. Maybe as a result of who I am in my diagnosis, I'm very oriented to detail. Or maybe I know because of my diagnosis, it's, not, I don't have the concentration to do meditation, which trust me, some days I definitely don't personally. So, it's good to know and be that self-aware what are areas that aren't going to work or what is going to work, and then we accommodate for it. So if you're that person like me, that not every day you're going to be able to concentrate and focus on meditating for that time, how can you modify it? Do you like to listen to music? And that's almost like a meditative experience. Are you a religious person and you want to pray in that moment? What are ways that you can take an already existing strategy and make it fit into your lifestyle?
And if you're ever having a down day, how do you get through? Because people are, it's so easier to give other people advice than take it on yourself. So,
Mhm.
how do you get yourself through a bad time if you're having a bad time?
Yeah. So when you're having a bad time, not only are you feeling stressed, but you're probably feeling other emotions as well, right? So it's really good to assess all the different things that we're feeling and then start to acknowledge them and accept them. When we say it's okay, we're feeling this way, I always say, work with whatever feeling is the most like strong or interfering with your routine feeling. So if you're feeling really sad that day and you're feeling more sad than stressed, work on those feelings of being sad first, and then you can come back, right? But the goal with stress management is that you're helping with those physical and emotional symptoms that come with stress, and you work on the sources of stressors. So hopefully by working on the sources of stress, that will in turn help with some of the other emotions that you might feel with having a bad day too.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you've set up a program, Reaching Equilibrium. How much harder is it to set up a program that's accessible for everyone than it is just to say to write a book or give one-on-one advice to people?
Yeah. So my program, the way it works is everything is self-paced. So it's not the one-on-one right now. That's purposeful because I am a social worker and I do want to separate out that what I'm doing with Reaching Equilibrium is not therapy, it's not medical advice, it's purely educational.
Yeah.
So I really try to use that power of connection through education.
Yeah. And what difficulties have you found creating a program and a website and things like that? Is there anything that come up that you didn't expect as you was creating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been very fortunate that I've had lovely people who have, helped me out and taught me on my own. So, right, this all kind of circles back. I believe in the power of education, and people have educated me in fields that aren't my strong point. So, luckily, there has been that. To relate to the website, what you're asking is originally I used one domain and then halfway through I had to switch. So that was definitely something I wasn't anticipating along the way, but we did it, we pushed through, and I'm very happy with the results.
And if people want to get onto the website to subscribe, where do they need to go to?
Yeah, so our website is reachingequilibrium.com.
Okay, and we'll put a link in the description below so people can get there. So it's been lovely speaking to you. I just have one last question that I ask everyone. So this answer will not change the outcourse of your life or your life's journey. But if you had 30 seconds with your 13-year-old self, what would you say?
Wow. You said 13, right? Not 30?
Yeah. 13.
Yeah, so you're 13, you're a little teen. I would probably say you're gonna get to do a whole lot more than you ever thought. Like you're gonna have so many life experiences, and that's like the most awesome thing. I definitely never would have thought that I would have taken an entrepreneurial route, and I did, and just really the dreams are coming true.
Okay, well, lovely. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Good luck with everything, and hopefully we'll be able to have you come back on, and we'll be able to have a longer chat next time.
Sounds good to me.